Everyone, thank you so much for joining the webinar today. We'll get started here in about 2 minutes.
All right. I think I still see people coming in. So we'll give it like another minute maybe. Oh, and Steve, we can see you now, so perfect. All right. Okay. So it looks like we're about five after. We have 76 participants joining us today. So thank you guys so much for joining. This is our first Triton Sensors webinar. So thank you guys for coming to attend this. I'm sure you saw it through the newsletter. We're also going to record a video of this. So if you want to pass it along to any other contacts or anything like that, feel free to share them the link and we'll follow up with the newsletter as well. So today's purpose for our webinar is really just talking about cell phones in schools and really how phones hurt learning. It's such a valuable asset, be able to stay in contact with children and with students and like that, but can also lead to a little bit of a distraction. And schools have tried to put some enforcement plans in place, but we're here to talk about today how Triton can really make that enforcement real and take some of that lift off of teachers and administrators' shoulders at the school. Okay. So yeah, just a quick agenda that we're going to go through. We're going to start really with why phones in schools is a problem in the first place, how they can distract from learning, how many people have phones. We'll give you guys some statistics on that. We'll talk about the policy shifts that have come in place since cell phones really became the norm for most students. And then we're going to talk about how Triton plays into that. Our phone detection feature, how we alert you guys, how we pick up on the cell phones. And then we want to hear from you. We're also going to hear, thank you, Steve, for joining us today. Steve is someone that can speak to the use case. So he has firsthand experience with the cell phone detection. And then we also are going to do a live Q&A. So we have about a 15, 20-minute presentation prepared for today. And we just ask that you type your questions into the chat, and then Chase, our marketing director from Triton Sensors, he'll be monitoring the chat. He'll mark those off, and we'll go ahead and answer those questions towards the end during the Q&A session. So if we don't address them right away on that slide that pertains to it, don't worry, we're going to get to them in the end. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so as I said, really here's just some statistics about how popular phones have become in schools. So you can see, 43% of kids in the grades from, really high school, 8 to 12, really have smartphones in their hands. You can see 97% of those 43% that already have the cell phones use them during the day. And that makes sense. You think about all of the notifications that you receive during the day, whether it's from social media, messages from your friends, updates about sports, things like that. There's so many things that your phone and your mobile device can connect you to that it's too easy almost to be distracted. And especially like the environment of education. It's really, really important that you give your full attention, your full focus to the instructor, to what you're learning. And you're constantly getting buzzed, you're checking your phone for notifications. It can really take away that attention span. And that's another thing that we're seeing as well, with the fast pace and all of the stuff that we have in front of us with social media, with your mobile devices. It can really shorten your attention span and make you a little bit scatterbrained with five, six things going on at once. Yeah, so Jamie, I'm going to pass it to you for the timeline.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. So yeah, I mean, phones in schools, started becoming super popular early 2000s. I remember my first phone was, one of those razors. the pink one to be exact for everyone. But it was really more about, safety. There was Columbine and then there was 9/11. So parents really wanted to be able to have instant contact with their child. But then as we got more into the 2000s, that's when, Instagram and Snapchat and Vine and things that were meant to make students addicted to their phones really started to dominate through smartphones. And then now it has gone, from that convenience aspect of that safety from parents to their student to being a full-on distraction for everyone involved in the classroom.
Thanks, Jamie. And you really hit on it. I'd say really the tipping point from which kind of tipped the scales from it being, a safety thing to more of a distraction or convenience thing to a distraction thing is definitely the rise of social media, especially in the whole 2010s, the rise of Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, you name it, kids have it nowadays. It's that instant dopamine rush that kind of Jack referenced. We want to be constantly connected. So if you want to go into school, during the summer, during after hours of the school day, you're used to be constantly connected with your friends. And once you get in the school building, there's the distraction of that. I want to be connected. That's how, these social media companies have kind of wired things for us. We're constantly connected. But it's not just the problem of distraction, but honestly, it is the problem of being constantly connected for real-time bullying and also exclusion. Back in the day, if someone wanted to, get in a fight or something like that, they would have to, physically plan it. Now you can text, your friend in biology class and in English class and in gym class, and you can all meet up in the bathroom and, bully someone or fight or something like that. That barrier to entry has been eliminated. So now people are using it as a tool to gang up on other people, whether it's social media bullying, etc. And that's all due to, the rise of the internet and social media and everything like that. But I think the thing the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, was the viral challenges. On the right is that video from the Devious Licks challenge. I'm sure you all remember that from a couple years ago, where if someone filmed themselves breaking toilet dispensers and soap dispensers and sinks and toilets, they'd go famous on TikTok. So if I'm doing it and my friends are doing it and they get thousands of likes on TikToks, I'm gonna do it. Costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in damage, and um, was a huge problem in schools. So I think that's really the tipping point for the problems of cell phones in schools.
Yeah, and I actually used to be a former high school biology teacher, so I have like firsthand experience on how phones impacted my students in my own classroom. We were seeing, so much distraction, and that was lowering test scores, which was then leading to lower graduation rates. Um, as for academic leaders, 53% report of academic harm from cell phones directly. And now we're seeing these cell phone bans come to fruition, and we're seeing those test scores, start to go back up again. We're seeing graduation rates rise again. So that's a direct, you know, impact because of cell phone bans.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, I think I'd say like the backlash started, especially in 2024. I think that's when we started noticing things start to change. I think during the spring, a lot of schools and districts started implementing kind of pilot programs, maybe at an individual school site or maybe an individual classroom or grade level, where students were no longer allowed to have their phones out, where they would have to put them in a pouch or outright banned throughout the building, because the schools increasingly saw all these problems: bullying, vandalism, violence, assault, distraction, poor test scores, everything like that come up as a result of allowing phones in schools. So once schools implemented these policies, it was painful a lot of times for students and parents. Like once you take away something, people they think it's an infringement on their rights or something like that. But eventually, students started to love it. They found that, wow, I'm actually talking to my friends. I'm a lot happier. My grades are improving, and I'm learning for the sake of learning, and I love learning. So I'd say this summer of 2024, we started seeing across the country a lot of schools and districts implement policies that restricted the use of cell phones. And it's definitely like pulling teeth. It's definitely a learning curve, but I think the results have really speak for themselves. But it's not always an easy process. There's a lot of challenge that remain with enforcement. People are smart, kids are smart. And if they want to get away with a phone, there's ways around it, so to speak. That's what we'll be talking about a little bit here later today, is help enforce that.
Yeah, thank you, Garrison. Thanks, Jamie. So we'll talk about kind of the different policy approaches too that we've seen. And this is because we're obviously interacting a lot with the education market, and we're kind of seeing how different schools are handling this and how we can best take that, find a happy medium for everyone. So we've seen different things like outright banning phones, and as Garrison said, that can lead to a problem with, it's your property. I have it on my person. It can lead to a concern for safety, being able to get in contact with emergency contacts. We've also seen hybrid policies as well, where phones are allowed, but they must be off during instruction, which is hard to enforce. And that you're going to see that's kind of the common theme, really around all three of these, as well as teacher level. It's up to the teacher in your classroom. If you want to be on your phone, you can be on your phone, but that's really not the goal, of sitting in the class and really listening to your instructor, and that's not what we want to empower for our students and for education as a whole. So really what we've noticed is that no matter what policy that's come in place, it's helping remediate the issue, but definitely not eliminating it entirely. And the challenge is really for consistency and enforcement. So as I hinted at earlier, teachers have 1,000 things going on at once. Administrators have 1,000 things going on at once. The last thing that you want to have to be worried about is my student being on their cell phone. And because of all of these responsibilities too, that can kind of fall down the priority list for teachers. They're worried about the things that are actually going on in real time, and it's just one more thing that you have to add onto their plate. So now we'll talk about too. Garrison spoke about how we're seeing this become a national trend. So we have a map here that we pulled from Newsweek talking about campus safety, and basically where pilots and grants have started to limit the phone usage in schools. Then the orange, yellowish kind of have guidelines on the phone usage, where the red, and you can see the red is kind of dominant, where they have statewide bans, they have statewide restrictions on phones during instruction hours. So we've seen this by having locking pouches. If you've seen them, at concert venues or something like that, where you drop it into a bag, you can't have it. Similar caddies, make students put it in the locker. And these things all really help in the short term, but I'm sure as we all know, and all of us as former students, most likely, kids find a way to get around this. Kids are definitely smart. So really, we've seen Florida, California, New York leading the way with these bans and these restrictions, and all of these things that we can put in place in the short term help, but we want to provide a long term solution. Um, yeah, so this is really too. We were talking about the workaround. So I talked about the locking pouches, the caddies, the lockers, and how kids are actually working around this already. Burner phones, which is funny. You bring a burner phone to school for the purpose so you can use your other phone. Rather, I think burner phones were invented so that you could use the burner phone and get rid of it. It's really just like a two phone trick. So it limits the effectiveness, and also, it's super hard to monitor. You don't want to have to search a kid for two phones, check them every time they're going into the restroom, check them on their way into the classroom. These strategies help, but, they're not maintainable and they're not the most effective. And students will definitely adapt.
Yeah, just to kind of touch on that just a little bit more, Jack. I had a previous teacher that I worked with at a school, and she said their school like put in, yonder pouches to ban phones. And there was a student who actually figured out how to open those pouches, and she was charging all the other students, running her own business essentially, free the cell phones, if you will. So
Entrepreneurial. Yeah.
yeah, they will always, find ways to get around these. But, from my personal experience, like I said, I was a teacher. I graduated high school actually in 2012. And when I was in high school, excuse me, we were not allowed to have our phones out at any point in the day except during lunch. We would get our phones taken. Our parents would have to, come down to the school and actually get the phone back. And then 4 years later, when I was a teacher, I was expecting some sort of rules. I knew like phones obviously had become more prominent and they were being used as tools in the classroom, but there was absolutely no rule essentially whenever I was teaching. So kids were allowed to be on their phone all the time. There was no consequences for that. We had AirPods becoming popular. So, I mean, girls could have their hair down and have AirPods in, and I would have no idea. Kids would have their like hoods up with AirPods in, and I wouldn't know. So it really became just like a huge distraction. And I tried to embrace it. I am younger and I tried to allow my students to use them as tools. but then that turns into a whole other issue of they're not actually using the phone for the purpose in the classroom. There are students that don't have phones, so then they're left out. So essentially, it just became, such a mess, and it was just harder to keep their attention. And I taught biology, so I already had a hard enough time, keeping their attention on me. So I didn't need a phone, making it even worse.
Well said, Jamie. Yeah, and Jack and I, we did a poor job introducing ourselves. We're two of the three co-founders, and Jamie's our director of sales. So that, I should have clarified that earlier. But when Jack and I were in high school, actually, when we started the company, we were juniors in high school. But the high school we went to, they had a phone-free policy. So you could have it on your person, but you weren't allowed to use it in class. You weren't allowed to use it at lunch. It's basically like either in your backpack, in your pocket, turned off. Um, and we went to like a newer high school. I remember that was like a newer building. And I remember when they built the building, there's a rumor that they put like signal jammers or something like that in the walls of the school. But in actuality, it was the concrete. So, the signal wasn't too great. Um, but yeah, I really think it really benefited us from going to a school that, we weren't allowed to use our phones. Like we were kids and found ways around it, so to speak. But if we were in class, a teacher could see you, so we would have to go to the bathroom or whatever if we wanted to use our phones. But for us, I think it was really good. It forced us to actually interact with our teachers and our fellow classmates. I remember at lunch, and Jack and I, we had the same lunch a couple of years, and I can still remember a lot of the conversations we had. Just honestly, really good memories of actually being forced to interact with each other and grow as individuals. And then I talked to my cousin. She went to another school that didn't have a policy, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we just play on our phone and check Instagram at lunch." And I'm like, "That kind of sucks." So I think it's pretty awesome that just growing up in an environment like that, you're actually forced to learn, forced to interact, and I think you're better for it.
Yeah, well said. Also, well said about the introductions. As I said when I started or when we started, this is our first time doing a webinar. So yeah, that's on me. I had the intro today, but yeah, I'm Jack, Garrison, and Jamie. We're the panelists and joined by Chase, uh, from Team Triton.
Cool.
Yeah. So let's talk about the technology behind it then. Actually, how we're doing this. Okay, yeah. So this is basically how Triton is conquering this issue of cell phones in schools, and that's really they're going to be in set zones. So they're going to be in bathrooms, testing areas, in halls, in close proximity to the Triton sensor itself. So those locations, which are hard to monitor already, and kind of revolves around our whole motto as a company of monitoring those private spaces where you want to protect the privacy, but the people occupying those spaces are still have a right to safety. So we're going to pick up on the phone signal, and we're going to be sending out alerts via email, SMS, app notifications through your video management systems, and that's all going to be centralized on our Triton Cloud, our dashboard. It's going to work on both units of our product, so that's going to be on Triton Pro and on Triton Ultra. And it's a little bit stronger than cameras. Cameras can't pick up that phone signal, which is what we're picking up on, and it makes phone policies really enforceable instantly, and also while compliant to those students' privacy. So we're picking up on the signals. The range is customizable. So, if you have administrators in the next room or something like that, where you don't want to be picking up on them, you can shrink the zone, things like that. You can also schedule the detection to match the bell schedule of your school. So you can upload that into our system. So you're not going to be getting alerts, after hours when there's a basketball game going on or some event at the school. And the thing that we want to emphasize here too is that we're considering privacy first. So we're picking up on the presence of those cell phones, but nothing about the content, nothing about what the person on their cell phone is actually viewing. We're just picking up that the phone signal is there.
Well said. Thank you, Jack. And I'll let Jamie give, or actually, I'll talk real quick about like what actually inspired this feature. So we started developing this feature back in like the fall of 2023, before even phone bans became popular. We worked with a customer in Georgia. They had a really, really bad incident happen in one of their bathrooms before they installed our technology, where they had, I think it was 12 students assault one student. And the principal said to me, this is a three-stall bathroom. There's no way I would ever allow 12 students in the bathroom at a time. This is before we had our Ultra model, and which does people counting and loitering detection and things like that. And we went to the drawing board, like, how can we count the number of people or figure out how many people are in the bathroom? And our mind came to this. We realized, everybody in America has a cell phone nowadays, and we can use the number of cell phones to basically approximate the number of people. So we said if there's 12 phones in the bathroom, there's 12 people, and you can get an alert for overcrowding. And that was a feature that was loved by our customers. And then once we started seeing a lot of schools implement, cell phone free policies, we realized we can use the exact same technology, but just limit that threshold. Instead of 12 phones, maybe it's one phone or two phones or something like that. So that is really what inspired the technology, and customers have taken it and have loved it.
Yeah, and I just want to throw this photo in there from my days in the classroom. It was homecoming week, and my friends and I decided we were going to be Cards Against Humanity, and we were going to be, what the things that we hear our students say every single day. And my friend Tori, she taught seniors, so her constant thing was, but I was texting my mom every single time she would ask them to put their phone away, which I'm sure you all get the same thing from your students.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's kind of what we have on the technical side and the background side. But we're very fortunate to have Steve Foro with Belmont County, the technical school. He's a school resource officer there, and we just wanted him to kind of talk about his experience with cell phones in the classroom, the policies, what's new, what's changed in his time there, how he's using Triton, etc. So without any further ado. Steve, if you could just please introduce yourself, and give a little background on yourself and your experience with cell phones and everything like that. That'd be super helpful.
Steve Foro of the School Resource Officer for the Belmont Career Center here in Belmont County, Ohio. I've been the resource officer here for 3.5 years. I'm retired after 28.
Steve, it's a little hard to hear you. Could you get a little closer to your microphone?
It's on my tablet. Clearly,
Oh,
can you hear me better now?
perfect. Thank you.
Anyway, I've been at the game a long time in the law enforcement section, but we're upgrading a lot of things here at the school. One of those is to get in the vape detectors and the sensors in the bathroom. Our cell phone policy last year was, you could use it in areas that were considered non-instructional. The law has changed in Ohio. They're going for zero use at all inside the building. So we decided to implement it now rather than in January when it takes effect. So we've had very, very good luck with it. We've only had just over 40 incidents since the beginning of school with the cell phones. We haven't figured it out on the sensor side of it yet, just simply because we've only had it for 2 weeks and we're still in the testing phase. So we're still kind of figuring out how to get the firmware update with it. So we've been playing around with that.
Nice.
And so as far as the sensor, using it for the cell phone stuff, we haven't really got into that too much. So we're hoping to get the firmware update here next week, early next week, and try to get in there and play around with it a little bit.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Steve. That's super helpful. Yeah, it's available now, which is awesome. And it's been for a while. So yeah, we can just happy to get that set up for you. Yeah, and tell me, what's kind of like what's the, I guess, repercussion, so to speak, if like someone's caught with a cell phone? Is it taken from them, or is there any disciplinary action? What's that look like?
Well, we try to, since we're a career technical school, we try to give them the option to be responsible. So we try to treat them as adults. We try to prepare them for the real world when they leave. So we try to tailor the disciplinary issues to that. Everybody's going to mess up, so we give them one, we give them a warning. Don't be doing it again, whatever. And then after that, it'll progressively get worse. And the second offense, the teacher will take it and keep it to the end of class. And then the third offense, the parents have to come pick it up. And then after that, it becomes an actual more of a disciplinary issue as far as, detention, suspensions, and that sort of thing. We've been very fortunate that we haven't had too many. I don't think we have any second warnings as of yet. So we've been pretty fortunate with that. The kids here are great. They for the most part, but do the right thing. So
Nice. That's awesome. And was there any like pushback from parents when you announced this policy?
No, I know when my daughter was in school, I wanted her to have hers on her for any emergencies or anything that did, but she also knew that she was not to have it and use it during, during class time or whatever. So she wasn't allowed to use it during school. But if something happened, she would have it with her. And with 360 and all these other tracking apps and stuff like that, we felt it was best if they held on to their stuff just out of sight. It's not and it won't be a problem. And for the most part, they understand that. So
Nice.
the only place we really do encounter it's sometimes we'll catch them in the hallway and sometimes we'll catch them in the bathroom with it, which is where the sensors are located. So we're
Nice.
pretty confident once we get everything up running and the bugs and kinks worked out of it, it's going to be pretty useful.
Nice, very nice. And Steve, how do kids feel? Or have they responded positively, negatively? How's that sound?
It really haven't been a problem. We're surprised, believe me.
Yeah, yeah.
It hasn't really been an issue. We've been pretty lucky, I guess, in that sense, because we got everything from 9 through 12.
Uh,
And surprisingly, they and we noticed a total switch in the personalities because they're not all on their phones at lunch. They're actually talking to each other, which is crazy. Nobody does that nowadays. And as a result of that, they actually come up talk to us more too, which is great. So
that's
it's
awesome.
interesting. We were not
Yep.
expecting the outcome to be what it was for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, one of our customers described me as like taking a binky from a baby, so I know exactly what you mean. So absolutely. And one of our other customers said that they have like a tool that tracks how often kids go to the restroom or requests pass, and they said it's down like 30% from when kids walking to the bathroom, not to use the bathroom, but to play on their phone. Have you noticed that at all, or noticed any change in that regard?
Uh, we only have the one sensor that we're testing, so we've noticed that particular bathroom, really low volume of people.
Yep.
The
Yep.
other bathrooms, a
Yep.
little increase. So
Yeah.
when we get the other ones ordered and installed and stuff, I'm sure it's going to make a difference. But
Nice.
yeah, they know it's there. That
Yep.
we didn't try to hide it. We didn't do secrets. We just told them, listen, we're trying this out because you might as well get used to it now because it's happening.
Yep.
And for the most part, we've had really good success.
Awesome. Awesome.
Steve,
I'm glad.
I used to say that when kids would ask me if they could go to the restroom, I would say absolutely, because that I'm not, you can do whatever you want, but your phone has to stay on my desk. And 9 times out of 10, they would say, never mind, I don't have to go. And I would always, shocker.
So weird how that changes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wonder if I could do that and be like, hey, you can go to the restroom, just leave your vape right here.
Yeah, right.
I'll get one, I'm sure.
Right.
Awesome. That's pretty much all I had for you, Steve. But I guess that we can move into like the kind of the live Q&A, so to speak, section. So yeah, just please feel free to put any questions in the chat, and we'll try to our best to go back through and answer any of the ones that came through while we were talking. But Steve, thank you so much for sharing your experience about implementing policy so recently. I'm so glad things are going well. I think that's pretty awesome. And yeah, that's super cool.
All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, so let's start backtracking here through some of the questions that came through while we were going through that presentation. So the first one I'm going to start with is from Edwin. And he's asking what signal from the phone is it detecting? And also, is it all phone manufacturers or certain ones? So great question. What we were picking up from the phone is the Bluetooth signal. So I'm gonna get two in one here too because I saw another person ask too, does it still work if it's in airplane mode? So yes, to both of those. So it is picking up on the Bluetooth signal, and even though you have your Bluetooth turned off, it still emits a really low signal, lower than it can connect to headphones, can connect to smartwatches. So it'll be turned off, and it's the same thing that applies in airplane mode. So we're still able to pick up on that Bluetooth strength. And to address all phone manufacturers, yes. So what we do as well is, so your next question naturally may be, well, how do I know it's not a laptop? How do I know that it's not, headphones or smartwatches? So we're able to filter out from the information that we get from the Bluetooth signals, everything except for cell phones from manufacturers.
And even if like a phone's turned off, which is kind of crazy, like if you ever see the like when I turn my phone off, it says like even if you turn it off, it's still discoverable in Find My. We're pretty much using that technology to detect it. So that's pretty much how that works. So even if Bluetooth's off, airplane mode, Wi-Fi's off, no matter what, it still can be detected, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. So another question here from Danica. If two people are on either side of the wall, how does it know which signal? What is the radius of the detection? So the radius can really be as small as you would like or as large as you would like from up to about 16 feet. It's 10 meters, so it's about 16, 17 feet. And when you're asking on either side of the wall, so basically there, the Bluetooth signal, obviously we want to pick up one that's on the same side of the wall as the unit itself, as the Triton unit itself. So the Bluetooth signal is going to drop off as it passes through that other material, especially like cement, drywall, something like that. So that's how we're going to know actually that it's a lower signal strength, and we're going to pick up on the ones that are inside of the room, not outside.
I see Kyle's question from earlier says, so the people counter is taken from how many cell phones there are in the room. So Kyle, I think you have our Ultra sensor. For people counting on Ultra, it uses radar. Basically, how it works is there's a radar beams that shoot out and pick up on a person's heartbeat, and then it's transferred back to the device. And that's how we're able to tell how many people are in the room, where they're at in the room, and how long they've been there. So you can alert for overcrowding or loitering or class cutting. Um, and then I see Timothy's question about does it detect satellite phones? I don't believe I'm not sure honestly with the technology behind satellite phones. I've not tested it in all honesty. We're looking for mostly smartphones, so that's I'm not 100% sure. Um, and Jack, to answer Danica's question, I think you did.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then Debbie asked, do the cell phone detectors work with or interface with Triton smoke detectors? So with our sensors, that is actually the cell phone detection is built into the sensors. So that's a feature of the sensors themselves. So any Pro or Ultra series has this feature built in. It was just a firmware update we did last year that that all customers can take advantage of. So absolutely, yeah. And I see Mark's questions. Many schools are under pressure to show ROI. Do you have data that links your sensors to measurable improvements in student focus or reduction in phone-related disruptions? Mark, I love that. It's a great question. So on average, what we see across the board is about a 30% deduction in the amount of bathroom requests, which basically correlates to students spending longer in the classroom. Seat time, or I think is the the measurable that's used, but on average, we see kids spending a lot longer in class for instruction, which is pretty awesome. So very, very proud of that. Um, and I see Chelsea's question. I'm a very small school district and I have 6 sensors from Triton. To be clear, this is an add-on feature on to the, so yeah, you already have that feature built in, Chelsea. And if you want, I'm happy to help you get that turned on or showcase how to do it. But it is built into your sensor. Um, and Kevin, I see same question. You have the Ultra sensor in for your restrooms, and I'm happy to just there'll be a link at the end. Just scan it or contact our support team, and we'll get that turned on for you if you don't already. I see more questions. There are several access control and video management systems. Are there any open protocols we can use to connect to a building management system, BACnet, Modbus, LAN, MQTT? So our main integration protocols are MQTT, TCP, and HTTP. And if you go to tritonsensors.com/docs, it'll take you, I think at the bottom it's Triton integration guides. It'll show you all those protocols. I see David's question. Is this an extra device I have to install? I have the Pro. So no, it's built into the sensor, and we're happy to help you get that set up. Um, and Kyle, I see your question about the parameter. So yeah, just fill out, just if you put a form on our website or there's could be a QR code at the end. If you just scan that, we'll go ahead and help you get that set up for you. And Chelsea, you're welcome. Mark, great question. I see, is Triton positioning this as a classroom-wide deployment or as a selective tool for problem areas? How should schools think about deployment strategy and cost per student? So really our whole goal as a company is, protecting private spaces, especially bathrooms, change rooms, locker rooms. That's like the core of our business. With this cell phone detection feature, really the goal is to help enforce, phone-free or limited phone policies to ensure, students are back in the classroom and learning. So we definitely recommend positioning these in those private areas, bathrooms, change rooms, locker rooms. But the cool thing with the cell phone detection is there's a pretty big range on it, so it can travel pretty far. And really, you could actually technically move this device if you wanted to, as long as you have a power over Ethernet connection. But I think the bathrooms are really the place where students are going to go to use cell phones if they wanted to. So I think they're, already positioned there to do a good job of that. We have like some customers that in colleges that are worried about cheating, like with people bringing, phones and stuff like that to take pictures of tests, etc. So we have sensors like that installed in those places. But great question. And Stephen's question, if our campus has multiple devices, is it AOD turned on for some of the devices, but on others? Absolutely. With any detection feature on Triton, you can turn on or off as you wish. You can adjust the range as like the distance that the cell phone detection is looking for, if Jack didn't make that clear. Is this an additional license? It is not an additional license. It's all built in to the sensor. That's nice about, our platform is it's always growing, always enhancing. There's some pretty awesome stuff that's built into the device that we haven't even like, fully built out. But the cool thing is just like this, they're firmware updates. So yeah. Yes, no. Thank you, Christine. We appreciate it. We very much appreciate it. And then just here on the slide is that the little QR code. So if you already have the sensors, you want that turned on. If you're interested in the devices for helping enforce, your cell phone policies or your drug detection or your fighting policies or anything like that, just fill it out and someone from our team will be able to assist you. Thank Chelsea for the kind words. But yeah, that's kind of it. You'll get a follow-up email from us just with kind of synopsis of this, along with links to everything we talked about today. And we're also going to, based on like feedback from this meeting, we're going to make a little video on if you already have the sensors, how to turn that feature on. So yeah, thanks everyone for your time and your attention here today and joining us on a Friday, and for hearing us out and paying attention. And hope everyone has a great weekend.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks again, Steve, for joining us, and thanks you all for attending.
Time.
All right.
You guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.